Hey, what's up guys? Travis Fulton here and welcome to Online Gainz. Each week, I'm gonna be sharing with you real insight on how I'm developing players all across the world on full swing, short game, and putting. Be sure to tune in.
All right, so let's take a look at the target line here. First move, club head gets a little inside. Get it up the parallel here. You'll see it kind of, go out of picture here. The club shaft probably parallel to the ground right there. So that club head is definitely behind your hands early. And then, when it kind of gets in, it can get a little bit across, meaning the club kind of pointing across the line over here versus the club, say, more over there. So it's a little inside, then it gets a little, then it gets a little across. The club comes down, you can see right there, that's a nice spot there on the right forearm. Into impact. And then probably exiting, maybe a little down the line, a little high, like in through here, perhaps a little more than you want. And I think that little combination of in and across, if we were just to kind of give it a reference point here, left arm parallel to the ground. Now is to draw a line on that. And I'm just taking the camera angle into consideration here too. It's a little, probably a little low. Probably stand the camera up just a little bit. But you can see the shaft right there pointing outside the ball target line. And then when you come down to that point, right there, now you can see the shafts on a little steeper plane. All right, so it's coming down a little steeper than it went back. And look, you can play golf like that. There's been some that have done that. I think one thing to consider that when you do that and you look at the shaft angle at impact versus where it starts, the tendency is you can get some handle raise, when you come down a little steeper than you go back. And all of these things that I'm talking about, kind of lead to your ball flight, right? What you're probably hitting it good, it's a little bit of a draw, but when you miss it, it can be a block and it can be a hook. You can get that low hook once in a while, especially off the toe. And this is, what this swing shape can predict in the way of that, the probability of that at impact, where you get a little in and horizontal here with the shaft. We'll cross the line, then we get just a bit steeper on it coming down, and then we tend to get the higher handle at impact, and that's what leads and explains your ball flight. Nice little draws when it's all going well, but that occasional, when you get that high handle at impact, that face can stay open or it can kick over and you can get the block or the hook. So my advice to you is going to be to get the club head a little bit more out in front of you here. Let's say get the club head a little more out in front of you here. And then to get the club pointing a bit more left at impact. And I think if we can shape that, where the club head's a little more out in front, and then we get the club shaft, what's going to feel maybe perhaps a bit more laid off at the top. It's not laid off, but it'll feel like it's a bit more to the left. Then I think the club will come down slightly shallower than it went back, leading to a little lower handle and leading to a tighter dispersion. Less blocks, less hooks. Okay? So when you get the club head a little more out in front of you here, the shaft will tend to pitch a little steeper. It'll tend to pitch a little steeper. And then when the club shaft's pointing a bit more left, I think it'll be almost a given that that club shaft will come back down slightly shallower than it went back. That'll lead to a little lower handle, and that'll lead you to be able to rotate a little cleaner through the strike. And I think that move and those adjustments will fit nicely through the bag.
All right, so a lot of good with the swing. I want to change the swing shape just a little bit. We saw on video there that the club head was dipping a little inside, then it would get a little across the line, and then you would tend to kind of pull down on it a little bit, and the shaft would just be a little steeper, and then the handle had to raise a little bit. Now, with that said, you got a ton of good things happening around that with that, right? Obviously, you're a very good player. But you sent me those videos for a reason and want to know why that block and that hook and that toed shot comes into play. So to get rid of that, my advice to you would be to get the first move a little more here, okay, where the club head's a little more out in front of you. I wouldn't be like hinging the club head up more aggressively. Don't do that. Just feel like the club head's a little more out in front of the hands at this point versus the club head dipping in behind. Club head out in front. When you turn from there, that shaft will pitch a little steeper. Okay, I think a good thought for you would be to feel like the right arm just stays a little bit taller than the left, a little bit taller on top, rather than maybe that dipping in, and then you can see that left arm wanting to get on top. So when the shaft gets parallel, let's get it here. Then when you turn, what I would try to do is feel the shaft hanging out a bit more to the left. Okay, so I would do some where it's kind of 1 and then 2, 1, club head more out in front of the hands, 2, I turn and feel the shaft kind of pitched back, what feels like kind of laying down more on this trigger finger, laying down back here, okay, like that, versus pointing, say, over there. So I would do a lot of those, just awareness of where the club head is in space. Now, I almost promise you from there that if we're here and we're here, that shaft, when it comes down, is definitely going to want to be more there, right? So I don't think we get so much of, you know, in, across, and then that little steeper angle coming down. I think we get more of this to this, and then the shaft will just kind of want to stay there. And then from there, that'll really start to free up where you feel like you can turn and get the club to kind of move back around the corner. The hands maybe coming a bit more passive rather than before, you know, when it came down a little steeper, that handle would have to raise, and then you kind of saw the hands had to take over maybe a little bit more, and which you're very good at, but you could see the hands wanting to kind of take over and release it a little bit down the target line. All right, so that's my advice to you. I would really clean up the backswing first, and then if we feel good about that, then we'll do some impact stuff where we start feeling more rotation, the handle coming in lower and around this way versus maybe having to stand up the handle with more hands down the line, okay? Let me know if that makes sense. I like these changes a lot for you.